So recently, we've obviously looked into starting a partnership together. Vitara are more on the performance marketing side slash sales conversion and sales consultancy side for private healthcare clinics. Do you want to give an introduction as to what you do and what you specialize in?
My name is Joshua, of course, and we are Fluid Marketing. Fluid Marketing specializes in content marketing, so that's content for social media, for websites, for all social media platforms, as well as social media management. In short, what we do is that we make sure that businesses can get that best return of investment, but also bringing something that's very innovative and high quality for clients. As you know, in the dental industry, there's a lot of content out there that's a bit dated. And if we probably look back at it about 3 years, 4 years ago, there wasn't that much of groundbreaking content. Of course, now with social media and trends with certain songs being used in dental videos, you can find something like Skepta being used, for example, just to kind of bring that edge to dentistry. And it's definitely become more aesthetically appealing as well. So we're just trying to make sure that we bring that to dental practices, keep them up to date, because a lot of the times they're professionals and they don't have the understanding of how marketing their content online and then converting that to a client that's then going to inquire about a service.
Yeah, they're great clinicians, not great at the marketing side, but that's ultimately what an agency is for. And I think what's worked well with in our partnership together is you're really a specialist in the high content production. That's given us a really good element to bring to clients. When we work together on these new clients now, you have a specialist in the video production. We work together, we liaise together on what's working really well in the ad campaigns, what we're seeing is working in the sales calls and the objections that patients have in those calls. We feed that downstream back to you. And then when you're on site with the clients, you're very particular, and we'll go through your sort of on-site strategic piece because it's really interesting. But you're great at what you do. And then that's brilliant for us because we can take literally the top-notch talent to a dental clinic, for example, and we are doing great work across marketing and sales for that. You mentioned the dry content in the dentist industry at the moment, and I like it with the Skepta reels, the Skepta audios, and it's nice because it does feel like an outdated industry for so long, and it's nice to have that now modern feel towards a lot of the reels that are coming out on Instagram. What else are you doing that's changing it up at the moment?
So I think a lot of the time it's firstly understanding how a dental practice wants to portray themselves. In some cases, it may not always be that kind of music, but it's also down to the taste of how you then bring that video to light. You need to think as a content creator, how is my client going to perceive the work that I've created? And once you understand that and you understand how a dental practice wants to, or an aesthetic company, for example, wants to come across, you can then begin to tailor something to that. And of course, back in the day, you'd see a lot of those like commercial songs that were used that were very like
elevator music.
Just very like epic kind of music. But now you're adding a bit of like style, a bit of color to those videos, because at the end of the day, you need to make yourself as visible as possible. And when it comes to a client seeing your work, they only have like 2 or 3 seconds. You know, if they're trying to do something where you're creating a call to action script and you want to then use sponsored ads, it needs to be extremely engaging. So some of the things that we do are engaging captions. Of course, you want to make sure that they're animated. I mean, nowadays, just doing the normal captions isn't enough. You want to make sure it's capturing that person's attention. If you caption with the quality first, you can caption with the pain points. And then from the pain points, you can keep them going to then watch the rest of the video. And this is like, I know I'm probably going ahead of time a bit, but this is why I think how a company represents themselves is extremely important. It's that first initial impression that you have. And if you're able to capture someone's attention in that, and then of course you can then show a space that looks beautiful. I mean, I've worked with some dental practices that are like grade 1 listed buildings and they look amazing, but no one knows about them because they're not visibly online. But if you begin to then show those things, you can really bring someone that wants to be, let's say, for example, they just came in for an implant case, or maybe they need a root canal or something like that. After they've had that sit down, they're then taken aback by the whole experience. And that's when you then can begin to convert someone if you're a dental practice. It's like the content's that first stepping stone in terms of getting someone in.
Yeah, and I like your piece about every clinic is bespoke. It is unique to what they do. And because dentistry is now a commoditized industry and that everyone does the same thing the same way, and they have been doing it for so long, I think what's happened is they see what good looks like down the road, they replicate what good looks like, and everyone's doing the same thing now. And what I like to push, and it's been difficult from our side, and now obviously now we're working together, we share that same strategic vision, which is what makes this clinician so unique as to what they do, what makes the building so unique. You mentioned the grade 1 listed. That's such a good, unique selling point. Even using from the ad side, for example, a photo of the building from the outside, that's always the best performing ad. And it sounds so simple, but you can imagine when someone's on their Instagram and they drove past that building earlier that day, they recognize it. So you get local recognition as well. But it's all these small pieces, I guess, and that's what makes dental clinics and clinicians really unique. And then I guess with what you do, that you're dialing it up a notch with the high production content, and you're bringing in the education side, but also the entertainment side. And I really want to touch on that later, because that's really, really intriguing. I think there is a lot of like tunnel vision in dentist industry, isn't there, in regards to the content?
Yeah, 100%. And this is kind of like something, I think we spoke about this when we actually met for that first time. And a lot of practices are now even rebranding the whole practices because they understand this concept of, let's say, for example, you had like a Louis Vuitton and then you've got Zara, for example, and money wasn't an issue. If someone was to go for one of the two, what would be their reasons for doing so? And it's almost like an association. If they see something that's nice, and if someone's then looking at that, naturally they're going to be like, okay, oh, that's a really nice bag. Where did you get it from? Et cetera, et cetera. And I think that same concept works for dental practices. You've got some really beautiful dental practices in central London, for example. And when you see them, you're like, wow, how does it make you feel, right? And you feel good stepping into a space that looks good the same way you would feel good when it comes to buying a bag. So again, it transitions to then, if you're then showing that to a client, that's going to make a huge difference when it comes to content.
100%. What's your view on the before and afters that are just constantly on every dentist clinic's page?
Because like the teeth?
Yeah, because we had this conversation in that coffee shop.
You know what? I think it's, number one, we have to remember what is the primary goal of the company, whether it's restaurants or dental or personal training, for example. They have to show their work at the end of the day. And yes, we may do it in more professional ways, and that works, that's great. But I don't think there's necessarily anything completely wrong with showing like the cases that they've done. If anything, I think it's really good, especially when it comes to, from my perspective, when it comes to the content and the amount of content that you're able to make. We can do a shoot for a client, for example, we'll do a 2-day visit and we'll end up leaving with about 56 pieces of content. That's podcasts, call to actions, Q&As, scripted videos, you know. And when you combine that with organic content, not to mention that when we finish those 2 shoots, they get all the raw clips as well. So when it comes to managing the social media, we have a ridiculous amount of content that we can use that will spread over maybe 3 to 4 months. That's why we don't do monthly shoots. We do it quarterly because we know we've got enough content. After that first month of getting everything prepared, we know when it comes to the next month, we've still got a backlog of content that we've recorded for the client. So I think that really, really helps. And even when it's just mobile phone content, for example, alongside with the case studies that they have, I think it really helps. Obviously, there's some cases that you can't show, obviously, like implants, which may be too gory, like before and after. But again,
I think for the organic, it's fine. You do come up with the blurred, the images. Warning on Instagram when you put up those style of content. When you then put that as an ad, it actually comes under ASA, so it's a slightly different guideline. Actually, you can't put explicit before and afters on ads, and it does catch out some clinics. We had a really bad example where whole campaign ad set, everything got shut down. It was a nightmare to get resolved, but it was because we had an explicit before and after. So you have to be careful as to how you do that. With the before and afters, one way that we've found has worked quite well, and I know we've discussed this, which is like actually talking about what the patient's journey has been. It's not just a simple, here's a year ago, here's today, which is fine. And this is my point on like everyone's doing the same thing, but what was that patient actually going through? What was their situation? And we mentioned that sort of behind the scenes and almost following that patient in like a documentary style, which I think can work really, really well, because you are ultimately selling the feelings and the emotion of what that journey is. It's not simple before and after, here you go, get in touch, we'll do your thing.
And I think that's where, obviously, this is basically testimonials that we're talking about, right, when it comes to content creation. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about doing that, is because, again, it's not just a service.
Yeah.
A lot of the practices that I work with, they have great relationships with their clients. And when it comes to sitting down and having a conversation with them when I'm interviewing them for their testimonials, you really get to understand how much of an impact that service has. And I think it's also making people aware of it, as always, when that's what content is. It's about visibility, right? At the end of the day. But when you're able to do it as a testimonial and you're able to capture those pain points, you're able to talk about, I used to have a missing gap in the top row of my mouth. And since I've had the implant done at so-and-so practice, my confidence has gone through the roof. I'm not self-conscious about smiling anymore. I mean, even to be completely honest, I used to have a gap, right? And
teeth look great now.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I'm still in my Invisalign case and still like probably got a few more weeks and maybe a few months as well. But I'm like, it's a first-hand example of like being able to feel way more confident and using that to a practice's advantage so they can actually convert that client, you know, because I feel if they're talking to the camera too much, sometimes it's too salesy, right? You want to make sure that you have a meaningful, organic reaction. And one of the things that I don't see a lot of, kind of going back to when it comes to content, is, let's say, for example, it was someone working at a practice, let's say someone that does implants, and they're sitting down with someone that they had an implant case with. You don't see that. Most times it's between like agency owners or another dentist. But I think that would be a really nice way of actually showing content with your client that you've had, if they're going through the process of aftercare, and just the end result, you know, whether it's a full mouth rehabilitation or whether it's just Invisalign, composite bonding or veneers, you know. So I think it would be a really nice touch and a different direction to go in when you're doing podcasts, but you're also having conversation with a client, because you want to make sure you take away that this is my practice, this is what we do, come see us. And then taking them to that point where it's like, okay, this is how we make them feel rather than what we do.
Totally agree. Like, content is ultimately the communication of your treatments and services and putting that in front of people who are looking at those services. That's literally the bridge. That's what content is. It's the communication gap. 100%. Yeah, that's interesting. You touched on the iPhone thing, and recently the UGC style, YAP style, as people call it, that's been doing the rounds. And I mean, I've been testing it. It's actually worked really, really well for both organic and for the ads that we run, not just from the agency side, but also for our clients. So dentist, UGC, sitting in the chair, talking with the nurses in the background. It's working really, really well at the moment. What's your opinion about the quality over quantity debate, I guess, that's happening at the moment?
I think there's a fine line, right? I would look at quality as how you want to present your business. It's more so on a first perspective basis. The organic content's really good as well. I mean, I've seen videos that are used by dental practices that are just on a mobile phone that have got more than 400,000 views, you know, and that's great for exposure. I don't think there's anything wrong with a video going viral for a dental practice, you know. I think it's important that you use organic content and use it in a way that is providing solutions for the business as well and helping the business out. So I don't think there's anything wrong with using organic content. I think it's really good. I feel like a lot of dental practices maybe downplay it because they don't understand that the lower the quality, the less salesy it seems. And that's not necessarily in the case with it, but that's just how people look at it. If they see something polished that's talking to them, they know that someone's necessarily paid for that, right?
I think people have got like fatigue as well. I think just years of just being hammered by ads, really polished looking ads. And someone with, and I know people are purposely looking as much low budget as you can with the wired headphones now and talking into your headphones. And I think the way I see it, it's more of another vehicle to demonstrate what the content actually is. So if the way that we talk through our strategy on the content when we go on site is, okay, if this is a pricing angle that we're going to hit for implants, for example, the high production, the Q&A, the podcast, the UGC style, they're just different vehicles to deliver the same message. That's all it is. And really, it's just a case of, I think where quantity and quality come into it, it's actually, you need the quantity to test the different vehicles to see what works best. But ultimately, I think the quality is still in the value of the message that you're delivering. And how you're coming across as both a brand and as a clinician.
And it's like we spoke the other day when we was talking about like when we create hooks for a practice, it's not just one hook that we're going to put in, and that's why we do like multiple Q&As. That's why we do like scripted videos specifically, because what you want to do is that, okay, we've got one scripted video, but you want to make sure you have different hooks so that when you are putting it through the ads campaign, whether it's Google, Meta, or LinkedIn, whatever platform you then decide to use, you can then begin to pinpoint what is working, what isn't working. And then once you find out, okay, this is performing better than others, you can then begin to like niche down on that content specifically and then create more content. So in the long run, it's helping that practice understand what's working, and you're getting it to a point when you can just like turn on a dial and just be like, okay, we need more cases for implants coming through. We already know what implant hook works the best, or we already know what Invisalign hook works the best. We got an open day coming up, for example. You know that you can just turn on that dial, you can create the content's polished, and they're getting the results that they want to see. A lot of practices get burnt and they get hurt from an experience because they haven't got the results that they necessarily wanted. And I feel like that's, I'm probably, again, jumping the gun again, but I feel like that's something that happens with a lot of dental practices, whether that's content creation or lead generation or SEO, whatever it may be, social media management.
100%.
That's something that we see a lot of.
100%. I think it comes down to expectation management. I think when agencies promise a set amount of leads, it's all well and good getting the number of leads. And I've said this before, it's anyone can throw up a campaign and get leads on Meta. It's actually really easy to do. And I think when agencies pitch cost per lead to dental clinic owners specifically, they are very eager to jump on that and think, oh, 100 leads, that's brilliant. We had 100 leads come through our phone last week or the week before, and we converted 50% of them. So if we get 100 through Meta, we're going to convert 50%, and they start thinking about the numbers on that side. But I think a good agency will walk through, actually, it's not the cost per lead we're going through, it's the most important metric, which is cost per acquired patient. So how much does it cost to get a patient from Meta ads or TikTok ads or LinkedIn ads, whatever you're running, and then you reverse engineer what that looks like from, okay, so if a cost per acquired patient is £100 and we got conversion rates of this, therefore we need this many leads coming in. So this is how much budget we need. And that having that real conversation, I can definitely say it's lost us clients, potential clients to work with. But I can also say that because we've had those conversations, expectations are managed from day one, and we haven't actually had any bad cases from the beginning. And then also going downstream, when you look at cost per acquired patient, you then actually look at how to grow the clinic itself, rather than just, again, those vanity metrics of, marketing agency sending across a spreadsheet that has 100 leads. We did our job. We told you we'd get 100 leads in, but really no one's winning in that situation, right? What have you seen from the content creation side in regards to like burning bridges with clinic owners and
when they're not getting the results that they want?
I
guess, like you said, it's always about having that conversation at the end of the day. And I think sometimes when it isn't communicated, the expectation can change and people aren't on necessarily the same page. So I guess it's understanding what the practice wants to achieve. This is why it's so important to know what they want. What kind of leads that they want to achieve? Sometimes the time that it takes. When you're then doing the lead generation or you're creating the content, when you're putting it through Meta ads, you're not necessarily getting the best results in that first 2 or 3 months. That's the fine tuning process in order to understand what is working, because as much as you're creating content, putting it out there, you've got to understand the location, who are the competitors within the local area, and how is that going to affect your algorithm when you're then putting content out there? In some cases, they may be the only practice within a 10-mile radius, which is great. But when you're in London, it's completely different because there's literally a practice nearly like every 2 miles, you know? In a case where you may have to burn bridges, I probably wouldn't necessarily say burn bridges, but it's just coming to an understanding, maybe, okay, this may not be what they want. Because so for example, if it's a squat practice or if it's a practice just starting up, they may not have the budget to do every month for lead gen, for example, or they may not have the budget to do every quarterly. So it's now then having a conversation, okay, this is what works. If they are in the process of a refurbishment, for example, we have financing options that can help them massively when it comes to if they want to spread the cost, because then they're not committed so much into that year. They can then put that money and invest it into other things, which would be great for like lead generation, you know? So when it comes to burning, when it comes to a situation where they may not get the results that they want, again, it's always about having that conversation, making sure that they're aware and understanding that this isn't a process where it's like, okay, yes, we have a spreadsheet of what works, but understanding that it's different for each practice because the cases may be different, the location may be different, and necessarily how they want to represent themselves is going to be a difference as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think from our side, it's I touched on sort of the performance marketing side of the marketing in specific as to the cost per leads, the cost per acquired patients. Those are the most important metrics you need to track from the marketing side. It's difficult from our side because we're quite a boutique agency in that we do cover sales as well.
Yeah.
And then I look at patient retention. So what happens after the patients have gone through a course of treatment, they've been discharged, and you have a big database of emails. What do you do with that? And I don't think any agency looks at that. But my mindset has been with the clients that we work with, we're across the whole board. And my goal is to push the clinic forward regardless of, the marketing might slip 1 month. It might be, whatever reason as to why the marketing slipped, but we're deep in the sales calls, so we know that the conversion rates are increasing, so that's fine. The clinic is still growing in some capacity, and then we almost go back to the marketing and say, okay, this is what we've learned from the sales calls. This is what, matching it up to the marketing data that we're seeing, actually this pricing angle, even though it didn't get as many leads, the conversion rates are better. And then that's when we go back to you and say, hey, it's not just the leads. We need more videos around this because it's converting best, because ultimately that's what's making the clinic grow the best. So from when I do have these conversations, it's difficult because I say, I don't really know how to summarize our services. We don't really have any defined deliverables. Our job is to get your clinic growing regardless. And that is working across the whole board and having fingers in different pies. And that's where we found the best results. So multi-clinic dental group we have. Last week I set up email automation or email marketing for, I think, over 1,000 patients in a database. Yeah. And I don't think any agency, unless you go for a specific email marketing agency for that, it's just, well, we had a conversation. I sit in their board reviews basically, or I'm almost like their external growth consultant. And I said to them, I was like, well, what's happening with this list? Come on, let's do this. And I released a video called Lumpy Mail. I was like walking down the road talking about something called Lumpy Mail. In my last business, we sold bike racks. I sent a toy bike to this MD of a really big subcontractor, and we won over 500K in revenue off the back of it.
Wow.
And
it's amazing.
Yeah, but when I looked at their process, they were just sending generic letters through the door. And I said, look, let's do teeth-based suites in the post to the ones that have spent the most in the clinic in the last 6 months. Most of those people came back, and out of those, I think 30-40% referred a mum, a friend, a husband, and it was just mind-blowing that this was a whole segment of a clinic growth that we just missed. So I guess long story short, but from my side, it's difficult with the expectation management, because it's, I guess the number one thing I say is we're going to grow your clinic regardless, and we're going to make sure we do it in any way we can.
Yeah. And this is where it becomes more than just a service, and it becomes you're integrated into that business, because it's not just how many clicks per lead that you're getting, and how many conversions you're getting. You're going from the lead generation to then following up on emails to then doing SEO, as to where I'm doing content creation, we're doing social media management, and then we're making sure that everything is presented in a way that, number one, portrays you correctly online. Yeah. And when you bring those things together, it really makes a huge difference. Yeah. Because number one, it's done for you, so the practice can continue running. I think that's really important. Totally. When we do our shoots, we create an itinerary, right? And we'll do 2 shoots within that month or whatever works for the practice. Yeah. And we work around that practice so it doesn't have to close. Yeah. Yeah.
So go into that a little bit, because I think we've worked with different videographers, and it's more of we lead the strategy and we can tell them what's working. And, we want, I remember I sent one Google Doc to a clinic owner and it had 52 hooks in it. Yeah. and it was such a funny conversation. But but the problem was videographer would go just film it, and I felt like we could definitely level up that game. And obviously now we're now working together. It's brilliant because you can own that. But when you told me about your strategy about being on site, I was like, okay, I like this. Yours thinking's quite similar to mine, which is like, we've got all these different formats. We're going to go in. Every minute on site is engineered precisely. We let everyone know. And I really like that professional approach to how you do film the content every single time you're with clinic. So talk through, like, how does that actually work?
Yeah, so I guess I'll go from the top, really. So initially we'll then have that conversation and we talk about the issues that the practice is having, what they want to accomplish. and what would be the best solution. The same way where you say it's bespoke, as you said earlier, it's the same for us. Sometimes they may want to focus. A recent one which we done was nervous patients, because they want to enter into the Nervous Patients Award. So we done some Q&As on nervous patients, which helped with creating content, and when it comes to submitting it for the awards, which is going to help them massively, right? But when it comes to our shoot date, once we've tailored that, we then find out what days are working for them. Most cases, when you're doing a big shoot, not every member of staff is going to be in. So you have to ideally probably shoot in 1 to 2 days, especially if you're doing the photography side of things as well. Not everyone's going to be there, right? So we plan for that. And then we also then create our itinerary, because if we're spreading it over 2 days, it's a lot more manageable. If it's the first shoot that we've done with a practice, we don't know what to expect. We don't know necessarily the character of the people that we're working with. So we want to make sure that there's less room for error as much as possible. So splitting it over 2 days works for us. So once we do that, we do the itinerary. And that's then making sure that, okay, if we're going to do a testimonial in the surgery room, we're going to put all the testimonials together. We know that from 11 o'clock till 2 p.m., we've got a chance to film 4 testimonials, and then also get the B-roll of them in the seats, for example, making it look like that with it and checking their teeth. So it's not just one angle being used for that patient. We've got enough content that's showing everything, and then into the scripted content as well.
Just on a note on the patients, actually, we've like now actually saying with these are the demographics of patients that we want in your existing client base. So if you've got great relationships with a 25-year-old man, 35-year-old female, we go through all these different things. And the reason why I mention that is because of the Andromeda update, it scans the content. That's effectively your targeting now. Whereas we have basically a massive ad copy bank targeting Gen Z, millennial, with different emojis, different pain angles. I think we've got over 70 scripts in there, or 70 ad copies rather. We're now actively saying we want patients of this demographic, and that's how we set up as well for the clinic.
So
sorry,
again,
go on.
When we do the testimonials, if we're doing implants, most cases the ages are going to be between the ages of maybe, let's say, 40 and onwards, right? In some rare cases that you have someone that's under that age, if they've had an accident, that they're then talking about implants, which is also a great case as well. I think that really works, because it then makes people feel familiar. It's like people can have implants at, let's say, for example, 25 onwards, or people can have root canals at earlier ages, you know? Not everyone's mouth is the same, you know, and it's also making people feel confident and safe. One of the videos that we recently done was for IV sedation, right? And when you are scared of going to the dentist, what's the best way of then reassuring someone? It's then doing a testimonial. It's then mentioning that, okay, we are here to make you feel as comfortable as possible and get you back to feeling good when you're smiling. It's really important that we do that, but also going back to just organizing everything, making sure that it doesn't interfere with the day, because the practice still needs to make money. There's still a monthly rent that they need to pay, right? And if we take one day out, let's say, for example, that was an implant case that was supposed to be a full mouth rehabilitation, right? And you have to push it to next month. What does that do for the practice, you know? So it's about working around them, enabling them to still do what they need to do on a day-to-day basis, but still them not having to interject that much, so you can still get the job done. When I have someone, when we do the shoes, it's not just me sometimes. Most times, if it's a big job, I'll have someone on the iPad with the itinerary, keeping up to date while we're creating the content, just to make sure that everything is done according to plan. And I think because they're professionals, they appreciate that, right? You want to make sure that your time is being used effectively. And when it's such a bespoke service, you want to make sure that that quality is being shown and it's being done in an effective way. I think the word I would probably say is efficiency. You hire someone to come in to create that content, or you hire someone to come in and do the lead generation or SEO. That is what they're paying for. And if you can do that efficiently and still do it at a high quality, which is what dentists do when they're doing composite bondings or veneers or anything like that, they appreciate it. And I think it goes a long way in terms of how you present yourself and how serious you take the job as well.
And those say it's a 2-day shoot, how much content do you have? How many months of content?
So an example was, we done a 2-day shoot, and we done podcasts, we done Q&As, we done scripted videos, we done photography, we done general videos as well, showing the space, drone shots, you name it, right? We had 20 podcasts. This was an hour of filming. We managed to get 20 videos from that. We then done Q&As, which were about, I think we done 23. We had more than in the end as to what was agreed. and then we done scripted videos, which was like 8 or 7 videos. So when you put that together, again, it's a lot of content that's already been made. Then you've got the photography that can be used, and this is when it's going back to social media, because you've then got, let's say, for example, 60 photos, and then you've got all of that content as well. And when you do it in a way when you're combining like the case studies, the organic content, and then not to mention, as I said earlier, you've got all the raw clips from a shoot that we've done in the last 2 days, which will probably equate to more than 200 individual clips. It can be a post where either you're using it for your stories and you've got POV, you're at the most beautiful dentist in Southeast London or something, POV, you've just got your teeth done and you've got a video of someone smiling in slow motion. That's one clip, but that's also one additional video that can be used. So when we do the content creation, we do want to do social media management because we see the value, and in terms of how far that can be stretched using resources that we have available, because again, the professionals in the dental space aren't that up to date in terms of, okay, what is usable, what's not usable, right? You know, so it's just making sure that you cover the whole spectrum so you can give them as much value as possible.
I think with organic content, everyone forgets it's an ecosystem alongside paid advertising.
Exactly.
The paid ads job is to get people coming in to the profile. So I always say your Instagram profile, if you're running meta ads, needs to be your website, basically. It needs to educate, it needs to entertain in some cases, and we could touch on why, but it also needs to give testimonials, quizzes, and again, that goes into the education side. But when your Instagram profile is set up as your website, when you're running meta ads, you are bringing patients in, then your organic content's job is to basically just stay top of mind, but also if we think about the messaging funnel, the marketing messaging funnel, which is top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, the ads are largely the bottom of funnel. It's your organic's job to do the general awareness. It's to educate, again, as I said, that's more middle of funnel. So all these, the organic and the paid, are sort of working hand in hand. It is like a giant ecosystem for sure.
100%.
But yeah, like, I'm so excited to continue working on the content side with you, because
good.
now it feels like we've got a specialist on the content side. The team that we've got have got over 10 years of experience running campaigns for dental aesthetics, hair transplants, and we're now really owning the marketing side, which is exciting. And then going forward, we've created a bespoke CRM that records sales calls. It can integrate directly into practice management systems. So what that allows me personally to do when I am in with the clinics, I can train TCOs up on their sales calls, so conversions increase. I can train reception teams up. So when patients come in clinic, for example, I can make sure they do best practices to increase the patient experience when they're in practice, which leads to likelihood of higher conversion rates in clinic as well. And because we're then pushing the AI summaries from the sales calls into practice management systems like a Dentally, the clinician walks into the room knowing exactly what's been covered, and they're not going over and rehashing old ground as to what the TCO had done in the video call or the sales call. And then they go in with a much better understanding. They know likelihood, what the emotions are, what the pains are. So if there's an upcoming wedding, for example, they are aware of that. And then the patient just feels like it's a complete seamless experience from literally the minute they click the ad to when they're in the chair signing off on the treatment. But it really feels like now we've got the specialist in every single zone of this. And now it's just taking it to, again, being that boutique agency, which is one of the reasons why we don't actually just work in dental. And one thing I didn't really mention, which was the reason why we don't just niche in dental, we work aesthetics, hair transplants, niche specialist medicine doctors, is because we literally take what's working from different industries and put it into dental. So we're not tunnel vision so much.
It's like apples and oranges at the end of the day, right?
I love that.
If it works for something else and you know how to re-engineer it, a hair transplant and, for example, someone in a dental practice, they're almost two of the same. It's just you need to tweak a few things and then use the same way that maybe a script's been worded. And then, of course, using like the B-roll content or documenting it as well with them talking to camera, and then just portraying it in the same way. Once you have someone, again, who's a professional and then covers it specifically, and then you have someone that can come in and then create that content at the end of the day, whether it's from one agency or two, at the end of the day, if you're able to produce the results, that's what someone wants. Someone may necessarily try and do everything, and you may not be able to give them what they need. That's what's important about understanding your position, and then also coming in where you know that you can provide that value when we're working together, you're the professional when it comes to doing the lead generation, the SEO, and following up, turning a client into a warm client from a cold, you know?
Yeah.
And I can then bounce off that.
Yeah.
You can tell me, okay, content-wise, what do we need to do? Okay, we need to do more hooks, specifically on what the procedure for a hair transplant looks like.
Yeah.
How long can it take if we want to do Q&As?
Yeah.
And then taking that content. Something you said earlier that was really nice was just like talking about someone getting ready for a wedding for the implants. Yeah. That's even an amazing image to use. Like taking a photo of someone, again, going back to content creation, because it's my field.
Yeah.
But using something like that, because you're telling a story at the end of the day,
Exactly.
you know? There was one thing that you said earlier that really caught my mind, and you was saying about using AI and dentally.
Yeah.
But I think we also spoke about it in the past when we were talking about how AI can't completely take away from that aspect and how it's still important to have human interaction
100%
in it.
Yeah.
So if you could just,
I'm willing to die on this hill, which is that AI will replace so many different things, but it will never replace human-to-human interaction. Voice agents are getting great, and people probably wouldn't be able to tell if they are speaking to an AI.
Yeah.
But AI can't feel that feeling in between words as humans can, and that's what a lot of my sales training coaching is when I work with TCOs. When you mentioned the wedding photos, for example, and this is a great example, which is they're not going to say that on the ads. They're not going to say that on the initial call, a discovery call that a TCO might have when a lead comes in. They'll say that when they're sitting on a chair with a dentist and they say, oh, I've got this wedding coming up in 6 months. What are the timelines? And it baffles me when I came into this industry and no one was creating this bridge between all these different aspects of a clinic, because there was so much data that was going amiss, and you were siloing marketing, and clinics would employ marketing agencies to come in and they would just do the marketing, and then there was a massive gap, and then there was what was happening in clinic. And I think because we record these calls, and that's a good advantage of the AI, and it creates an AI summary straight away and it integrates into dentally, we can literally take, again, what's happening in those human-to-human sales conversations that will help your clinician on one side, but that will also help the marketing and your content on the other side. And I've been, it's been difficult to get this point across, because when I have conversations, the mindset has been too much of, oh, but this is how it's worked for so long. And I maybe because I'm coming from outside the industry to in, and I've worked with PE firms, I've worked scaling big businesses. I look at it and I think, no, this isn't right. This is how you stay at one location. It's not how you go from 2, 3, 4 locations into a big group. You need to understand, or you need to measure exactly what's happening in those sales calls. And so if we're taking into the content and, the TCO picks up the phone and after a really warm conversation following a set framework that's been created through reps, which you've also measured, when the TCO has that conversation and they mention the wedding, for example, at the moment, that's not getting sent back to a marketing agency. That's just assumed, oh, that's great. Okay, cool. And you almost hope you get more patients like that. You can't hope you get more patients like that. If you measure patients coming in like that, you can then actively find more patients that come in like that. That's when we go to you and say, we've had 6 patients coming in. They've got a wedding next year. Please make a wedding. Let's make a content script, or let's make a single image static around a wedding in Florence, and the bride has lovely teeth.
Exactly. So that's really important. That's where it comes down to information as well. If you know something's working, you can then begin to tap into that. Understand that, okay, if this is what's converting, and people, the demographic of people that are interested in the videos are specifically people that are looking to get their teeth done for a wedding, or let's say, for example, something in the future that's really important, then you're making it a lot easier for that practice. Rather than, okay, let's just create the scripted videos. Let's cover all the services that you do, and let's then create videos for that.
Exactly.
You're almost like, it's almost like you're shooting into the wind, rather than nailing down and pinpointing this practice specifically wants more implant cases. And let's say, for example, a lot of those people that want implant cases are over the ages of 40, and let's say they will have weddings to go to, right? You can then create a video of a testimonial, someone talking about a recent patient that they had, what that looked like before. They can talk about their experience. And once you put that on there, because you've got it dialed in, like I said earlier, the conversions are going to be a lot more consistent, and you're going to get the results that you want. Because again, it's about making sure that you produce those results.
Exactly.
You
And I
know?
think from the clinic side, it helps because it's completely done for you. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
Even from the patient point of view, like think about it. If you look at an ad that speaks exactly to what you're thinking about, it might even answer an objection that you've got in terms of timeline. So you might have a wedding photo that says, get ready for your wedding in 6 months.
Yeah.
And that was their objection in their mind. Well, guess what? When they jump on the call after they've submitted their leads, they're going to be like, look, you've answered the only question I had. Can you book me in? And I always say it, but a consultation needs to feel like a formality.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that you need to keep measuring what's happening in the sales calls, inform the content. The content needs to speak that language and answer every single objection that comes up. Because look, you monitor your calls for a month, you'll have probably the same 3 objections.
Yeah.
Most of the time. If you can answer those 3 objections in the ads, they're going to roll right through the patient buying journey.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to touch on why I keep talking about VCOs, and we've landed on a really good strategy recently, free source, which is at the moment there's a submit contact form. TCO calls up those leads. They book them in for a consultation in-house with the TCO again, and then they go for a paid consultation with the dentist. That might happen in the same day if there's capacity available. We've actually reduced that patient buying journey and we've removed that discovery call initially.
Yeah.
And what's working really well is literally someone books in and they are presented with the TCO's Calendly and they can book in for virtual consultation.
Okay, nice.
Which is why I call them a VCO, not a TCO. So like a virtual coordinator rather than a treatment coordinator. So they're a VCO. They have a patient that's booked in, so you will get less bookings. So it'll be less leads, but we're not driving for leads. We're driving for acquired patients.
Exactly.
And so they're going to be warmer prospects. They're going to jump on those calls. And again, you record those calls. You understand what's happening in those calls. And then you push a paid consultation, which is redeemable against final treatment. Boom. That is such a simple process that's working really, really well because you've removed the friction point. But you need to make sure your VCO is like really, really trained up. Again, sales recordings in the middle. We work with the VCOs on sales processes, sales frameworks, dialing in minute details on the calls. So again, to go back to the AI, I know we're doing loops here, but to go back to the AI, it's if you say something a certain way, you tailor away on a sentence. AI won't figure that out because they just see a transcript. They won't understand your emotion beneath the words that you're saying. Whereas any human will understand it. And they'll understand the tone of which you say it in. And a good sales team that we're now starting to train means they understand that, they pick up on the language and they ask a simple question back like, was there anything that I said that you didn't quite register with? So something as blunt as that. Literally, AI can never pick that up, and I don't think it ever will. No. I might be proven wrong, but I think
it will naturally like improve over the years as it has done. But I feel again that tone and that conversation, the way you have that conversation when you're at the reception or when you're having that consultation with a patient, you have to nurture that client. And that comes by understanding what they're struggling with. And having that conversation of, okay, these are the solutions that we can provide. If AI was taking full control of that, you're going to lose possibly quite a lot of potential clients because the practices that I see perform the best are the ones that have a really good relationship. We're doing testimonials with clients and the patient and the practice owner are just having conversations mid-filming, just catching up and seeing how they're doing. So it becomes more than that, and I feel like relationship is just so important.
100%.
So
I see it. So my wife is a dentist, and she's had patients that have been with her for years, and they literally know when our anniversary date is, which is baffling because I forget sometimes.
We'll cut that
out. And just loads of that. It's just such a great, unique relationship to have. I really. Funny because I come from a background of my family owned basically convenience stores. So I'd work behind the counter when I was a kid. And I remember customers would see me growing up as kids. So I've always had a natural inclination to like really optimizing for customer relationships in general. And that's why I think I've landed in optimizing for patient relationships like when they come into the clinic. And I'll give an example on that, which because it sounds so strange, but like a receptionist. Imagine a patient walks up to your booth and you just say, oh, hey, what appointment are you? 9:10. Okay, please take a seat.
Yeah.
Now imagine the difference when you say, and you look at your calendar and there's only one appointment at 9:10 and you greet them by, hey, Joshua, thanks for coming in. How are you?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's a completely different experience. And then they sit down, and then not only that, but when the nurse collects you to go to your room, they're like, oh, hey, yeah. Did you catch that World Cup game? Yeah. It's just like small things.
It's a different level of relationship, isn't it? Really, as much as it's the content, and I love creating content, I love to see people do well. Yeah, you know, and I think what's rewarding for me is being able to see a problem that they have, come in there, have a conversation. They're being transparent to the point where, okay, this is not what's working for our practice. We don't really know what direction to go into. What do you suggest? And then I think one of the things that I just love is knowing that I've gone into this practice and I've made a difference. Yeah. You know, from when it was just one practice to it now opening up its third, potentially then doing its fourth location, you know, being there from the beginning and then seeing that process, and you become really invested in it. Yeah, you do. You know, of course, we're there to do a job at the end of the day, but it's your career. Yeah. You know, this is my career. Yeah. And my business is almost like my baby. Yeah. Obviously, I understand that it needs to function as well, but making sure that you can really give those results to a patient.
But then you relate back to the clinic owners as well, because their business is their baby as well at the same time. So
exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned AI. I want to ask you about the AI slot that's just everywhere. So I can't go on LinkedIn. I'm done with LinkedIn. I've deleted the app. Probably shouldn't, because I've got a good network on there, but everything is just Claude. It's so obvious. It says know this, but this. It's got M dashes. It's got the classic AI slop on it. But writing, I think, is one thing. Recently, there's obviously been a lot of images creation. So for example, on Meta Ads Manager, you can now create image generation really easily. Yeah. Some of them don't look too bad, to be fair. Yeah. But what's your whole vibe on the AI slop in content? I know Higgsfield, for example, you get AI avatars and everything.
I think AI is good. I definitely think it levels the playing field. And in the sense that I say that is the competition has fluctuated incredibly when it comes to dental content. 4 years ago, when we was creating content, no one was really necessarily doing what you see today when it comes to the way it's filmed and how they put it together. And I think when I say levels the playing field, is that when a agency then, let's say for example, they want to create a script, it's very easy for them to create a script and then read it through a teleprompter, rather than having that experience. I mean, having more than a decade's worth of experience and understanding what the pain points look like, you know. And I think that's where having a conversation, sitting down and actually talking about what you've experienced, as well as them seeing what it is that you provide for a practice or whatever client it may be, is really important. I think AI has its place. I think it's great. Sometimes there are some practices that do use AI for photos, which is fine, but you have to understand that sometimes when you are using that much, it affects the credibility of the practice.
I think it's inauthentic. I think people relate to people. Again, people buy from people. And I think if you're seeing AI everywhere, organics, ads, how can you really connect with that clinic? Chances are you walk in and you'll see the clinician's face for the first time when you walk in, if you book. And so I think it's great for like a shortcut. Where we've found it's worked quite well, I guess, from the content side, is if we have an idea, we'll use AI, quickly launch it, see if it works. If that specific angle works, then we double down on the high production content and like Q&A podcast, all these different things. So I think it's good for like quick idea generation. I wouldn't say like you can't lead with the AI.
No, I think it has its place, but you don't want to affect your own authenticity when you're creating that content as well. I think that is a vital part of where trust is earned. And if they can only rely on AI generated content, how are you then creating that bridge between building that relationship, building that trust? It's almost like when I'm recording Q&As, some practices have asked for a teleprompter, but I want it to be organic. I want them to talk about it. If it's got filler words like and that's completely fine. Because at the end of the day, they're getting to know that person that works at so-and-so practice a little bit more.
100%.
And it helps them alleviate any concerns that they may have. And that trust is then built as well.
Totally agree. I totally agree. I just want to finish off by talking about like educating versus entertaining specifically, because I think a lot of clinics recently, there's been the trend of someone's going to the top of a building. Was it the Empire State Building and they had the flag? Everyone had that for about a week, which was fine. Like I get that. So I guess there's like the trend style, but there's entertaining through just like what I find quite cringy content. Like you're almost downplaying your competence as a clinician when you do sort of funny dancing videos with your nurses, for example. I don't know how I personally feel about that.
Sure.
So I think that's like the entertaining side. I think the educating side is more around the just really dry talking to a camera with a teleprompter, going through really technical medical jargon with patients that won't really latch onto that and feel that. I mean, my personal opinion is like you need both to build the trust. I always found the entertainment is the hook to bring people in, but the education is what sets you apart as competence. So where do you sort of stand with that?
So I feel like the entertainment side is more so for building an influence. Because when you're creating, let's say for example, a funny TikTok video and you've got the dentist doing something funny with the video, you are technically reaching out to people within that same demographic. You're reaching out to other dental practices because the people that are going to like those videos are going to be the people that can relate with it, right? When it comes to educational content, the educational content is what's gonna, like you said earlier, turn a client that's cold into a warm lead. So when they're having that consultation, they've already had their questions answered and they want to find out what date is actually going to be available for them to then find out how much is the service going to cost, how long is it going to take, you know? And educational content is so important, especially for the organic side of things, because if someone then goes for an ad, goes to the page, and let's say, for example, they came for a root canal, the previous history of what a root canal would be like is that, oh my gosh, it's so painful. Where nowadays, I've done testimonials when patients that have had a root canal are falling asleep in a chair when they're getting the work done. So it's, again, making people aware of, number one, how is dentistry advanced in certain fields, in certain areas, and just making it easier for them to navigate from what do I need to do to have my teeth in the best shape possible.
What's my dream outcome?
You know, what's the dream outcome, you know, and then taking them through that process a lot easier. So
I guess like with the way I see it is you're entertaining can be the door that opens to bring patients in. I'm talking digitally. And then your educating is then building the competence to actually educate them and to bring them in. I do agree with that. I think it's the dancing stuff for me, which is, look, I think there's an argument to be made if it's on somewhere like TikTok, you can actually get really good metrics off the back of it. But again, I think the playing devil's advocate to that point is, what are you optimizing for? You optimizing for views and for viral videos, in which case, just copy a video that's gone viral and just do it in a dental setting. But are you actually entertaining for the purpose of bringing in potentially warm clients? And then your education and your competence is what brings them to the door.
Exactly. So that's really important to kind of get a grasp of and understand, just to help people. I guess, again, you're hand-holding them and taking them through a process. You know?
So. What's final question? Future of marketing in dentistry.
Because of the content I do, I see a lot of how content has progressed over the years. I think a practice, or let's say, for example, an industry that was very similar to dentistry when it first started off was property. Property videos weren't as entertaining as they are now. Now they're turning into like feature films and whatnot. When it comes to content for dental practices and aesthetic practices as well, hair clinics as well, it's going to take a step away from look how clean the content is. And it's becoming more about how this video makes you feel. I think that's where we're going to see a huge change in terms of content, because through this podcast and this conversation that we've had, you don't want it to be salesy. You are trying to build a relationship, and where everyone can do a teleprompter video to the camera and say, okay, tackle pain points and whatnot, you want to see the proof now, because every day is getting harder and harder to differentiate between AI and whatnot. When you have that authenticity, and you can engage content in that way to make sure that people can trust, feel good, and rely on you as a practice, that's where it's going to be a huge difference. I don't think it's necessarily in the quality. It's about understanding how someone feels. yes, the quality is really important because it still represents your business, but it's now taking that content to that level where people are like, wow, I resonate with that. That feels really good. How do I find out more about it? And that's our initial goal. That's literally what our goal is for when it comes to working with our future clients and practices.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'd say.
I like it. I think from my side, it is just moving away from the outdated practices of, you got sales on one side, you got your clinical team on the far end, and you got your marketing on the other. No one's talking to each other. They're all siloed themselves. Every clinic owner thinks that's the mindset because that's what everyone else has done. Again, coming from the outside in, I'm just looking at it and thinking, God, there is so much opportunity here. If one clinic, or if clinics continue to just think sales feed marketing, the marketing feed, well, actually really the content feeds the marketing feeds the sales feed the clinical team. And then you do have obviously the long term of like SEO, website builds, and we've got our own sort of specialists in those areas as well. But yeah, I look at dentistry, I look at, aesthetics, hair, specialist medicine clinics that we work with, and I just, even online pharmacists, right? And I look at it and I just think there's just so many wins that could be done when, there's a new way of thinking for sure. But yeah, that's it. And I guess that's a wrap, but I'm super excited to like continue working on some clients together. I think the way our mindset works in regards to when you mentioned what does the patient actually feel when they speak to this content, and when we're looking at it from an approach of, we measure everything so minutely that we can feed you with actual content and data and ideas that's proven to work and proven to grow a clinic. I think it's going to be such a good integration, man.
I mean, it's been so good already, and I'm excited to do more of it. So yeah, I mean, again, bring it on.
Nice one, man.
I'm excited for it.